Oh, come in, come in. We're in. Oh, nice to see you. Do have a chair. Nice to be snug indoors again. So, now, I have something special to show you. It's going to be, I know it's a fairly brief visit, but I want to show you a book and share with you an idea. So, the book, we're still, of course, in not quite near the season, but we're near enough. This is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You see the lovely gilt, the red, lovely gilt on the spine, and then for true Christmas colours, the green papers. But this is no ordinary or usual edition of the great classic A Christmas Carol. It's a facsimile. It's an exact facsimile of the first edition that came out in 1843. And it's just as, you know, Dickens was seized by the idea. He was seeing the kind of awful effects of kind of inhumane utilitarianism in Manchester in a kind of talk he gave. And he came home with this idea that he was going to have a go at that, and he was going to write a story that revived and kept Christmas and the whole spirit of it. And he was going to, you know, all these people who said, oh, it doesn't matter, let the poor starve, to decrease the surplus population. He wasn't going to have any of that. He was going to restore a bit of common humanity and decency to English society. And he was a man on a mission, you know. And he was in the middle of writing Martin Chuzzlewit. I mean, he had absolutely had to keep writing the instalments of that. And suddenly had a whole new project. And he wanted it for this Christmas. And he thought about it, literally, it was like in November. And he wanted to create the whole thing. And no publisher would go, oh, we'll do all that, you know. So he did it all at his own expense. He wrote the thing. He managed to get it out a few days before Christmas, that very Christmas. And he's the one who, at personal risk, insisted that it should be a really lovely book that you could give as a present and that you'd want to handle, and that it should be still at a price that, you know, people could afford, that it should have these. And he wanted the illustrations, and I'll show you. I'll show you what the title page. This has got a little extra introduction and things, but this is the title page as you would have opened it in 1843. The wonderful picture of Mr. Fezziwig's ball. They were hand-coloured, of course, then. A Christmas Carol in Prose, being a ghost story of Christmas by Charles Dickens, with illustrations by John Leech. And there it is, 1843. And he's pretty clear. Here's his little note, written in December 1843. His preface, the very shortest preface to a book you've ever seen. I have endeavoured in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea which shall not put my readers out of humour with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, C.D., December 1843. And what he raised there did indeed haunt. It didn't just haunt houses, it haunted consciences. It haunted, as it were, the beginnings of a bit of a Scrooge in anybody, and laid that to rest and liberated them. And I don't know the statistics, but there's some extraordinary statistics out there that charitable giving rose massively in the immediate weeks after the publication of A Christmas Carol, and it stayed high. And it transformed, you know, and I mean, there was a recent film about the writing of this book, I think a very well-made film, it's a slightly exaggerated title, it's called The Man Who Invented Christmas. But it really did rouse the conscience of the nation and direct it to really practical works of charity in the best sense of the word, not freezing, disdaining charity, but real wholehearted, merry, you know, charity of good fellowship. So that's amazing. Now, the other thing this book has, which of course it's a replica in every sense, except that it has a little bit of extra material. It has an introduction by none other than G.K. Chesterton, and then it has a little preface by a chap called B.W. Matz. And the first replica of the original came about as a charitable book for Writers on Hard Times, if we can borrow another Dickensian phrase, in 1922. And this book, in turn, is a replica of the 1922 replica. So it has that additional material. And in the preface, it also has some wonderful things of, pages of Dickens' manuscript. The manuscript found its way eventually into the hands of the rich, a great irony. J.P. Morgan bought it, and it's in some collection, and I think it's in New York now, But anyway, this book at least is in my hands. And the last page of the preface by this chap, Matt, says a really interesting thing. He says, "One remarkable thing about the carol is that it is far better appreciated than when read aloud than when read calmly to oneself in a comfortable chair. Really, a selfish thing to do. Little wonder, then, that it is such a favourite at Christmas time, when hundreds make a practice, almost a religious rite, of reading it on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day to an assembled company, and that elocutionists find it the sure and favourite choice if a packed audience is to be ensured. On Dickens' reading tours throughout his country and America, the carol was not only his special favourite, but his audience's as well." So it was kind of designed to be read aloud. So this was the little book. Now for my idea. Perhaps I'm raising the ghost of an idea as well. You've mentioned in the past to me, and several other of my visitors to this little study have mentioned that they wish I could read for a bit longer, and that instead of just having our little 5 or 10 minute things and a chat, we could establish ourselves comfortably and have a whole chapter and perhaps read through an entire book. And I'd very much like to do that. And I thought we could start a little club to do that. As a kind of, we could all have a membership in it. And although I'm going to start by reading A Christmas Carol, and then we might do The Wind in the Willows, ideally I'd love to read The Hobbit or even The Lord of the Rings. But I will have to speak to the powers that be and get the permissions. I've already tried to do that. And I'll probably have to pay for the right to do that, unlike The Christmas Carol, which is as free as the birds. But if we have a little subscription, then I have the means to do that, and we can anyway. So you'll see a notice or a notification of some sort. I'll communicate with you and let you know when we've started it. But I do hope we'll start it in time to read Christmas Carol. It's in 4 staves, as he calls it. It's a Christmas Carol in prose. So I thought we could have 4 fairly substantial sessions. I reckon it'll take about half an hour for each one, and we'll sit and we might be here, or we might even be downstairs with my my nice a lovely fire. It's a wood burning stove. We read the Eve of St Agnes together down there. Anyway, I'll work it out. So just look out for that, and look forward to it. And I will start with this very book, and I can hardly wait to get started. So hopefully, if you join up with that, we'll meet together and we'll read this properly in 4 goes. Anyway, thanks for dropping round.